The role of the Muslim woman is often put under the spotlight for varying reasons. Mostly the image is that of someone who is subjugated and shackled, a person who is denied their most basic rights under the guise of religion. However, there are those sisters who have taken it upon themselves to educate and inform women on the rights afforded them in Islam.
My passion for the focus on Muslim women's rights comes with an understanding that we as women need to assert an alternate narrative. The reason I'm saying this is because there's such a big hoo-ha about Muslim women's rights. And I wonder, why? Because these rights are there. They've been established. Let me give you an example. In 2006, I was listening to a radio broadcast, and it was Women's Day. It was an Islamic radio station. And the presenter was talking about all of these wonderful rights that women have that were given to them at the time of the Prophet. And I sat and I listened and I said, yes, okay. So we got these 1400 and almost 40 years ago. Why are we still debating them now? And why do women have to ask for these rights back when it was already given? I feel it's important to educate. There's a difference between teaching and educating. So when you educate somebody, you make them aware of what the situation is, what the principles are. I think most importantly, what is the beauty in this religion? And then thereafter, the choice is theirs.
Quraisha is a dynamic human being, women's rights activist, journalist and talk show host. She is not afraid to speak her mind and has often had run-ins with some of the more conservative members in the Muslim community.
Quraisha's activism, I would say, is very holistic. She's active all the time, even in your interaction with her on a day-to-day basis. She doesn't switch off and suddenly become a non-activist. So she's active all the time. Her quest for knowledge was one that she never gave up on. She's always been driven in a specific goal. She started studying later on in her life after she'd had kids and been married. So I hold that idea dear to me because I'm also married, I also have children, I also have responsibilities, but being the person that I want to be should never be something that you give up on, and she taught me that.
She is vocal about many issues that affect Muslim women and in her time has brought light to issues of parenting, hijab and women in mosques. One of her main projects over the last few years is the all-inclusive Eid Salah.
Okay, the Eid Salah campaign is probably either my notoriety or brought me my fame. I'm not sure what it is. But I studied at the Darul Uloom for 4 years. And one of the things that I learned, or the most amazing hadith that I came across during that time of studying, was the hadith on the Eid Salah. And there's quite a few, where the Prophet ﷺ encouraged women, the children, even the menstruating woman to come out to the Eid Salah. And so after that, I began to examine this question, and I said, what's happening here? Because what I'm reading in the text is not what's happening in reality. And when I engaged further, I saw that in Cape Town, it was an occurrence where Muslim women went out. You go even further and you think about all the Hujjaj or the people who go to Saudi Arabia. On Eid Day, if you go to the Haram in Medina after Ramadan, and you're there from the morning from Fajr, you see everybody from the city of Medina, all the locals, all the women, all the children, fill up the Haram Sharif. And so the question was, why are we not doing it here? I mean, the texts are clear. And so my friend Safiya and we started to engage in this, and we thought about it, and so we started to write. And we thought, okay, the texts are there, the evidences are there, let's talk about it. And we delved further, and we realized that Muslim women were also in many cases being denied entry into the mosque. So it wasn't only Eid, but it was a general allowance, or creating this perception that Muslim women should not go to the mosque. But there were very many contradictions in this whole notion of Muslim women should not go to the mosque, because when certain shuyukh were in the mosque, they invited the woman to come to the mosque. When they had special guests or certain jamaats, they invited the woman to the mosque. So if it was okay in those instances, why was it not okay for the woman in an ordinary instance of salah? But more importantly, I realized that we're not in apartheid anymore, and that these apartheid boxes that had been created needed to be extended, and they actually needed to be broken down, because it was a new community, a new society, new challenges. And so the whole notion of going back to the mosque, let it be a center of understanding, of learning, of developing, of spiritual enlightenment, that basically was the, shall I say, the stepping stone to the whole Eid Salah debate.
Apart from being a journalist, academic, Quraisha is also a parent of 3 children. She is a keen speaker and writer on Islamic parenting and the roles of mothers in Islam. Quraisha feels that parenting in Islam is daunting, as parents are responsible for the future of their children, and as Muslim parents, they often suffer from societal influences, peer pressure, and consumerism. She feels that Muslim women should be confident in their roles as teachers, guides, and advisors as they steer their kids to the truth. Quraisha's daughters are close to their mum and work with her to raise issues facing parents and young persons.
My mother imparts knowledge onto me that I should be opinionated, that I shouldn't be scared of what everyone else thinks about me. And I think especially as a Muslim woman, I need to take this to a lot of the youth who feel threatened and bullied by people around them or societal beliefs and values.
Everything she's taught me to stand up for injustice, to look at the history as to a manner in which we can make the present right. I think those are very important things, especially in South Africa. We still have our problems, we still have our grievances, and we need to be able to work through this and help people to work through this.
Islam affords women the right to chart their own paths. It is up to them to venture into the water and do this. Quraisha Suleiman is challenging the status quo and taking a whole lot of educated women with her.
Summer is upon us, and I hope the seasonal changes haven't affected you that much. Joining me in studio today is Dr. Nihal de Vries with this week's wellness segment. Assalamu alaikum, Doc.
Wa alaikum salam, Mariam.
With summer comes fun in the sun. Tell us more about how the sun affects us.
There are many beneficial effects of sun, but I would like to discuss the more harmful effects and how to sort of protect ourselves against it. Against stuff like skin cancer or premature aging. So I would like to talk about the UV rays, and there are actually different types of UV rays.
Yes, I've actually heard about it, the UVA and the UVB.
Yes, absolutely. So the way I always remember it is like UVB actually burns, so UV for burn. So UVA is responsible for tanning, and it goes really deep into the skin, so it changes your DNA. So as you can imagine, it goes deep down into your dermis, where all the melanin the melanin cells are, and that can actually cause a skin cancer called melanoma.
Let's talk about tanning, since it's going to be on most people's agendas.
I'm so glad you actually mentioned that, tanning again. So the UVA that goes right into the DNA of the cells actually causes a lot of damage. So there is actually no such thing as a safe tan.
I've heard a lot of talk about SPF and sun protection. Take us through the ways that we can protect ourselves in the sun.
Okay, so the general rule with regards to protecting your skin against the sun is to stay out of the sun. But it's impractical, obviously. But definitely to avoid the midday sun, so between 11 and 3 p.m. Also to wear protective clothing and sunglasses. And remember that there are UV filters in your sunglasses as well. So loose-fitting clothing, that's quite good. And then SPF, which is your sun protection factor.
What are the different types of SPF that we can use?
I spoke about the different rays of the sun, so UVAs and UVBs. SPF, or sun protection factor, is specifically against the UVB ray of the sun. And you get different SPFs, so factor 15 and factor 30 and 15. Now, what does all of this mean? This is quite interesting. So it takes about 10 minutes for your skin to burn in the sun if you haven't applied any sunblock. The SPF factor, for instance, factor 15, you have to times it by 10 minutes. So that's the time you are actually able to spend in the sun. It's not very accurate, but it's a good guideline.
So if you're using an SPF of 40, then that's like how many
You have to work that out.
What about UVA?
You know, we don't have there's not a lot of consensus with regards to the UVA, but what you should actually look is at the ingredients. So you turn the sunblock around and you check for broad spectrum sunblock. That's a guideline basically in terms of the UVA protection.
And any other tips, especially with kids?
Just tips in general, and it applies to the kids as well. You have to apply your sunblock about 15 to 30 minutes before you go into the sun. And when you are swimming or in the sun, you basically have to reapply every 2 hours, especially if you are going to be sweating or running or hiking and you're sweating a lot, you have to reapply every 2 hours.
Shukran, Doc, for helping us live healthy lives.
It's always a pleasure, Mariam. I hope you stay safe in or out of the sun this summer.
I definitely will. The halal food market has literally seen an explosion of eating places, from food trucks to hipster joints, and we visited some of these places in and around Cape Town.
Valued at $700 billion, the global halal food sector is an ever-expanding industry. In South Africa, halal eateries have branched out from the tried and true of traditional dishes to a wide array of cuisine, providing unlimited choice for those following the way of the Prophet.
Muslim people in South Africa make up a very small percentage of the population, but we definitely have a larger disposable income. And if you consider that Muslim people travel as families, we eat out a lot more, and because we travel as families, we spend a lot more. We're not spending on two people, we're spending on our children and extended families. So is there a market? Absolutely there is a market. We don't spend money on other things really as much as we spend money on food. So there's definitely a market, and I would not be surprised to see this grow exponentially in the next few years.
Boasting a wide range of culinary treasures from the Karoo to the West Coast, the Market Deli is the self-proclaimed purveyors of gourmet and specialists in traditional Malay and Indian cooking practice. Steeped in old world charm, the Market Deli caters to both basic and adventurous appetites.
The Market Deli is a social concept. The food is amazing. I mean, people should really come try the food. We made it a mission to actually look at the very best of Malay cuisine and actually serve it. But we don't serve it in the traditional manner, like, you know, people would put the whole tub of food on your plate and you start dishing. We serve it the way people are served in contemporary restaurants. We use boards, we use very funky type of things to serve food on. And young people like it, old people like it. In fact, funny enough, people come here initially because they like the look. But then they eat the food and then they realize, no, I'm coming here for the food. So the concept is, it's young, it's dynamic, it's hip.
Connoisseurs of the smoked meat method popularized by American diners, Smokey & Co. established their business in January 2016 and have since amassed a huge following. From their mobile food trailer, Smokey & Co. provides the unique wood chip flavor that meat lovers cannot get enough of.
In any startup businesses, you find a variation of challenges starting off, trying to build a brand, fixing your costing, doing your marketing. But the main thing is to persevere, and once customers see you consistently persevering, taking their feedback, renewing a product, things start to open up and start to become a bit more easier. So we know we have a long way to go, but we have a good strategy, we have a good plan. And I think sticking to that and using customer feedback regularly to navigate our way through this year, which is our first year, we're quite confident.
The gap in the halal food market is consistently being filled by innovative entrepreneurs. This long-awaited explosion of halal eateries confirms that culinary pioneers are making huge strides forward, ensuring that Islamic dietary standards are not only maintained but enjoyed.
The rise in halal eateries that we do see nowadays can be attributed to a demand for better quality food. Muslim people eat out a lot. I enjoy eating out a lot, which is why I started my blog to begin with. And we want to be catered to on the same level as everyone else. And everyone gets to try new and interesting, different kinds of places to eat out. And we as Muslim people want that variety as well. And I think the market and the industry has seen the demand for it, and they're responding to that demand. And 5 years ago, in Cape Town specifically, you might have seen 30 or so sit-down restaurants, good sit-down restaurants available. You now see over 70, and that amount is growing.
Consuming only halal foods is a paramount aspect of life for all Muslims. Considered pure foods ordained for mankind by Allah in the Holy Quran and Hadith by prophets. Eat of the lawful and good food which Allah has provided for you, and be grateful for the graces of Allah. It is He whom you worship.
For those planning a holiday trip to the coast from Johannesburg to Durban, we have a great idea. Why not stop over in Ladysmith and use our guide for things to do, see and eat?
Approximately halfway between Johannesburg and Durban is the town of Ladysmith. Most people whiz past without stopping to take a closer look, but there's an amazing history to be told, especially for Muslims, starting with the Sufi mosque.
The Sufi Masjid was established in Ladysmith by Hazrat Sufi Sahib Rahmah Alayh. There was a need, and the need is only realized now by the Muslim community, but it was there visualized spiritually, intellectually, emotionally by Hazrat Sufi Sahib Rahmah Alayh.
The mosque's architecture follows on the style established by Hazrat Sufi Sahib and mirrors others found all around South Africa. Here the foundation was laid not only for worship, but as a beacon of light to the pioneers of Islam in the region.
This masjid was built without a plan, without an architectural plan. So you will find Jamaluddin, the late, Allah grant him Jannah, with his force, I am given to understand that they would place the bricks one above each other, no plan, nothing. That is really something astonishing for me.
A visit to the town should start or end at this tranquil place, as Muslims are welcome to take time out and offer their prayers in a historical precinct. No visit to any small town is complete without indulging in the local food on offer, and Ladysmith is no different.
This diner was established in 2015. It was established with the demand of the so-called residents of Ladysmith and the passing trade that go out of town. And with the public response, it gave us an opportunity to provide our services more to them, and that's how we created the diner for Ladysmith.
Tantalizing dishes are prepared using only the freshest ingredients. The kaleidoscope of colors are a feast for the eyes even before the food is made, and the recipes are family-kept secrets.
I initially started cooking at the age of 15, washing pots. And my late dad, he's my mentor. And I've been, ever since, having the passion for food and preparing of meals. And this has brought me up to until this day. Feed between a son between people Saturday. This is entire rounding and have all the mix of carry dictionary that you have gadget that.
It is on to sit back, relax, and enjoy one of the best biryanis this side of the Klip River. Ladysmith is a town steeped in history and the scene of many battles, especially during the Boer War. Many sites are preserved and memorials erected to commemorate those who've fallen here.
This place is known as the Platrand Monument. It was erected by the local municipality and the Monument Society of South Africa to collect the remains of those soldiers that were killed during the Anglo-Boer War in this part of the country. As you know, Ladysmith became internationally renowned for the siege of Ladysmith, where the Afrikaner soldiers, the Boers, sieged the British soldiers and kept them confined to this part of town without any aid coming from outside or without anything going out. So they were here for 151 days. Many people lost their lives during that siege, and the British were eventually freed.
Visitors can spend time wandering the memorial and reflecting on what it must have been like for those who gave their lives for God and country.
The relatives and the offsprings of those soldiers that died, predominantly British and French and Germans, many Europeans, come to Ladysmith to visit the graves of their beloved. And we attract approximately 4,000 visitors a year.
The monuments were carved in a specific way to further entrench the memory of the fallen and honors their sacrifice on the battlefield.
Alhamdulillah, we've reached the end of another show. Next week, we have some more incredible stories to tell, so don't miss out. From me, Mara Mukwanda, Salang Hantle, Assalamu Alaikum.